Back here now quickly to discuss our next topic, sort of a continuation of what we discussed yesterday in regards to not necessarily just directly the NFL, but something that will affect the NFL at least at the earliest next year. Because yesterday we talked about Deion Sanders and we discussed the draft and how he could affect where his son could go. He's going to be very involved in trying to make sure that Shedeur Sanders gets to a place, a system where he can grow, he can develop, and it's best for him, not just get drafted to the worst team possible potentially if he goes number one or something like that, and really being just another one of these stories where he's mismanaged and it's just a complete disaster, right? Deion Sanders is not going to let that happen, and not only his son, but also Travis Hunter. He made sure to say that he's gonna, be involved, behind the scenes, making sure they go to the appropriate situations in the NFL. What we didn't mention though was Deion Sanders himself potentially also going along with his son to wherever he gets drafted as maybe the new head coach for any one of these teams that could be in position to get Shedeur Sanders. And what Deion's done at Colorado, firstly, is nothing short of, remarkable. It's nothing short of just great, excellent work that he's done there, right? Because to take a one-win Colorado team to now potentially winning the Big 12 and being maybe in the college football playoffs if things fall their way and they get a little bit of help, it's a remarkable, just change of pace from one year to the next and how good they've become, the development that he's made with some of the players and his coaching staff and everything like that. I'll never forget what he said, during the first year where things, kind of fell off towards the end. And he spoke in the media and he said, essentially, like, you better get me right now. Like, you better get your shots in now because the next few years, I'm going to get better and it's going to be a lot harder to try and get these shots on me. And he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying because right now I believe they're 7-2 or 6-2 as of right now. And he's done a remarkable job, not just in terms of the football field, but the culture and the program and everything he brings with being Deion Sanders, obviously, as well as doing an excellent job is huge for that school. So that's great that he's done that at the college level. But this kind of started to pick up a little bit of heat when yesterday on ESPN during one of their shows they brought up the possibility yesterday through some of the reports or through some of the hearsay they might be listening to that it could be a situation where we're not just bringing this up because it's just been pulled out of thin air. Like, oh, maybe like what if this happened? It has been a subject of discussion, just loose discussion of like what would Deion be in a situation where he comes with Shedeur Sanders to a situation where both of them come. Shedeur's drafted there as well. It has been brought up, I believe, in some scenarios within the NFL, right? It doesn't mean nothing's going to happen or anyone's actually thinking of doing it. It's just been brought up as a possibility. And it is noteworthy, I believe, just because it's been brought up, in NFL sort of related discussions, not just, guys on TV talking about it. They do talk about it, but it's because they do hear it from, sources coming from the NFL, obviously. So, we look at the teams that could be involved now, right? If this could ever develop into anything, what teams would be in position, right? If we think of Shedeur, and I guess we throw Travis Hunter in here as well, too, they're both going in the top 10. There's no way they don't. So, right now, looking at the teams in the top 10 in order, the number one overall pick right now would go to Jacksonville. Then it would be the New York Giants. Then it would be the Las Vegas Raiders. Then it would be the Titans. Then the Cleveland Browns. Then the Carolina Panthers. The Saints, the Patriots at 8, the Jets at 9, and the Dallas Cowboys at 10. That's the top 10 as of right now on Friday. If the season ended today, right, those would be the top 10 teams in the draft. And really, to kind of get this into a place where it could ever be possible, I would, point out that Shedeur fits most of these teams that need a quarterback, but Deion also, one of the most important factors, going back to what we talked about yesterday, would be that he would have to look at this organization. He would have to look at, I'm sure, the coaches and, like players involved or people involved with decision making and the system, the infrastructure, like he put it yesterday. He would have to look at that from a, I guess, father standpoint or coach standpoint and kind of sign off on it. As, as ridiculous as some people might think that is, he made sure to say, right, how we started all of this, that he was going to make sure Shedeur and Travis ended up in where he thought it would be best fit for them to continue their development. So even if Shedeur fits most of these teams that need a quarterback, Deion would still have to be on board. And what's interesting too is how many of these teams not only, need a quarterback, but also how many of them need a head coach. And I don't know which would be willing to like take a big jump like that with Deion Sanders, and which team would seriously consider bringing in Deion after about like 2 seasons there in college as a coach, and just make him an NFL coach right away. It's not something we like completely not seen before. We've seen it with Cliff Kingsbury, Matt Rule, Urban Meyer. Not the greatest job, probably one of the worst jobs, but it's happened nonetheless. You look at Jim Harbaugh too, just this year. Different just because Jim has been an NFL coach and he has played in the NFL, but with Deion too, it's a little bit unique just because yes, he would fit the mold of a Cliff Kingsbury or Matt Rule where, no NFL coaching experience, but I think he would also relate to Jim Harbaugh because Jim did play in the NFL. Definitely not the same success that Deion had or the notoriety that Deion had, but Deion, for how significant of a player he was and how larger than life he seemed, he would instantly garner the attention, the respect of everybody. I think usually when he walks into any room, any situation like that, people look at him and think, like, that's Deion. If he's going to talk to you about football, you're probably going to side with him on whatever he says. So that's kind of where he brings that advantage, and he's already shown to be a leader of men, a culture builder, a guy that's going to come in, not apologize for being himself, and I think a lot of these teams need someone like that, quite honestly, but still, it would have to, first, would Deion even come if he was offered a job? He said yesterday during his interview that he loves where he's at right now, and he has said before that, barring any changes that I'm not aware of, that he has said he does prefer the college level just because he does prefer kind of nurturing and helping young men grow into men, obviously, into professionals, than dealing with NFL players who might not be 100% committed, that are concerned about money and things like that. He would rather focus on college level. That's the last I've heard about that, but it is a factor, obviously, right? Whether or not he would actually even want this as an opportunity. But you can't help but think about it, especially during the off season where everything kind of is thrown for a loop. You got trades, you got signings, you got things just going all over the place with the NFL. One of the more active off seasons in all of professional sports. So anything could really change and happen, obviously, from now until like February or March or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, like, if you look at the fits with these teams in the top 10 and we speculate where we would like him to go or where we would think would be the best fit for him, out of the top 10 teams, the teams that right away I would clear off and think that there's no way he goes there would be the Jaguars, the Cowboys, the Patriots, because the Jaguars just gave a ton of money to Trevor Lawrence. I know they could realistically trade him. It's not impossible, but it would look very bad. It would look very bad if they gave him all that money and then they just traded him this offseason. It would be a bad look for them. It's kind of embarrassing. Same thing for the Cowboys. They made Dak the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, in NFL history. So for you to just trade him the next year or, in a couple years, it's just another embarrassing thing for the Cowboys also. So yeah, Deion would be great probably in both locations, but the quarterbacks are what's really holding it back. Same thing with the Patriots. They got their guy. Drake May, and he's been looking pretty solid. So I don't think you offset that. Obviously, the other ones, some of these teams where, yeah, I think it could be a fit, but I don't think Deion would agree with going there because I don't think they're great necessarily from the organization standpoint, would be Cleveland with all the negative history they have with first overall quarterbacks and all the quarterbacks they cycled through. Just look at Deshaun Watson as well. Maybe more so to do with him, but regardless, quarterbacks going there don't usually have the best of time. For whatever reason, I don't think Deion would agree to essentially go there. Then the Carolina Panthers, same thing. Not a lot of people like their owner, David Tepper. And the way that they've handled Bryce, obviously, doesn't endorse them very positively, so they're out of the question. The Giants, same thing. I think it's better than Cleveland and Carolina, but the Giants, Hard Knocks, how they treated Saquon, not really a fan of that. I don't think Deion would really mess around with that too much, so I think that one's unlikely. And then the Jets are a little bit on the fringe. I could kind of see it happen, but still, with the kind of just nonsense that has gone on with them, I'm not 100% confident Deion would go there. My most likely of spots would probably be the Titans, the Saints, and my number one spot where I think Deion and Shedeur, if this was ever going to be anything, would be perfect fits in, would be Las Vegas. And I like Antonio Pierce. Maybe, I don't know, if he's not going to be a head coach and they do fire him if the season doesn't get any better, maybe he could stick around as another coach, but I think Deion could fit in there as the head coach. Shedeur, Las Vegas, Deion, Las Vegas, everything would be like so perfect with who they are, the attention, everything to bring to that city, and turn that whole organization around. I think it's so perfect not to happen. And what's kind of funny about this is that yesterday Deion said yesterday that he would like someone in the organization who knows, essentially what they're doing when it comes to the quarterback position and what it takes to run a successful infrastructure of an organization and really know what they're doing, obviously, right, essentially. And what Deion said when it came to what he wants from an ideal scenario is exactly that. Someone that knows what they're doing with the quarterback, but also with a successful organization, to get the best from Shedeur Sanders. And it adds on to my point about the Las Vegas Raiders, why I think that's the perfect fit. Tom Brady, the new owner, a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, who knows more about what to do with a quarterback, who has talked one of the most about developing quarterbacks and the problems now with quarterbacks now in the NFL and actually developing them. I don't think it's a coincidence, and this might be the conspiracy theory in me talking, but I don't think it's a coincidence. Tom, part owner of the Raiders. Every time the Raiders lose, I think Shedeur Sanders goes on Twitter and tweets like "God is good" or something like that. You guys can go look it up. I'm not lying. I saw it on the Pat McAfee show. Every time, I think there's something there with Tom, Deion, the owner Mark Davis talking to Shedeur, kind of having hush-hush talks about Shedeur being their quarterback, just next year. I don't think all of that stuff is a coincidence, and it feels like a perfect fit. Obviously, the lights, the attention in Las Vegas, Deion, Shedeur. I think it's a perfect match. So if this was ever going to be anything, Las Vegas would be the spot for me. I think it makes too much sense. I don't think they're going to win that many games going forward either. Just the way that they're looking. And, they have good players. Max, Brock Bowers, they're looking great. Christian Wilkins. It'll change so much if Deion and Shedeur actually go there. Just when you get guys like that in your building, it changes everything, quite literally. And I think that's what Vegas needs at this point. But right now, it's at the very amateur level of actually happening. It's just kind of discussed right now. So we still have a long way before that actually happens. But in the meantime, we're going to get to our last segment of the show, continuing our unanswered questions series. Yesterday, we talked about the NFC North. Now today, we're going to get to the NFC East, fitting for yesterday's game between the Commanders and the Eagles. So we'll be right back to close out this episode with more unanswered questions around the NFL.